recording all at once. It's so good to see you today. It's March 27th. This month has absolutely flown by. It's been a really fast March. It's been a march towards this weekend, which is obviously the No Kings protest. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I wanted to say welcome to the Ignition News. I'm really enjoying learning about today's dates in history. So in 1912, First Lady Helen Taft and the wife of Japanese ambassador planted the first two cherry trees in Washington, D.C. This began a tradition of international diplomacy through plants. That happened today in 1912. In 1964, the Good Friday earthquake struck Alaska. It remains one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded in North American history. Remind me to talk about Alaska in a little bit. Today is World Theater Day. So for all of my theater kids, good morning and hello. It's good to see you. It's National Spanish Paella Day, which is fun. Quentin Tarantino was born today. He's kind of taken a shitty arc, if I'm being honest with you. And Mariah Carey is also celebrating her birthday today and getting ready to buy another Lamborghini with the profits from this year's version, royalties from that song, that Christmas song. Yeah, I forget the name of it. But yes, good morning, everyone. It is, in fact, all I want for Christmas. That's right. It is, in fact, Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. Yeah, it's also National Scribble Day. I love to take notes. I love to scribble. I hope you do as well. I told my doctor I broke my arm in 2 places. He said, well, you should stop going to those places. Oh, okay. Also, why did the Invisible Man turn down the job offer? Because he could not see himself doing the job. Okay, just me. Good morning. Oh, man. Oh, we have a lot to talk about today. We have 4 important stories and how they tie together. I think it's really, really important. But I wanted to start the show out today with really talking about and acknowledging something, which is we do not actually have a government in the United States of America. We are operating under the sort of illusion of governance. And really the only remaining vestige of governance that exists in the United States of America is the apparatus, which is designed to take your tax dollars, which it's now obviously using to continue to fund genocide and now to fund a war, an illegal war. But when you really think about it, for all intents and purposes, the system we live in, for you, if you're in the working class, is not designed to govern you. Of course, we have 2 systems right now. We have a system, we have people who the government, who the rule of law is designed to protect, but not to hold accountable. Obviously, the Epstein class would be one of those. But if you're wealthy, the government is a great apparatus for you to continue to acquire more personal wealth. And then there's the rest of us. And then the rest of us, it is a government which is there to hold you accountable. A government to hold you accountable, but not to benefit you. Governed by laws, protected by laws. We have 2 flailing systems of government, depending on how rich you are, of course. And I want to give you a couple examples of how we don't have a government. You know, I've talked about this many, many times. But yesterday I was driving on a very busy, significant road in Las Vegas. It's actually a different road than I normally talk about. And I was driving on this road, and this is a major paved road in a major city of 2 million people, Las Vegas, Nevada. It is a well-traveled thoroughfare, and the road is like off-roading. The road is like, it would be easier to go out in the desert and drive my car in the desert than it would be to drive it on this road. This is a road which has 4 to 5 inches of pavement disparity. I'm not joking. I'm going to take a picture next time I go. But this is a major American road. All around us, our infrastructure is crumbling. Our airports are crumbling. Have you ever been to like an airport in Mexico or maybe an airport in Italy or somewhere else, a foreign country that we sometimes call like third world countries? The airport in Cabo San Lucas is very well run. What are the airports like in this country right now? There are several third world countries whose airports are operating faster, better, safer than the airport of the United States of America. And I would venture to say unless you're wealthy. Now, that's, of course, we'll get to that in a second. But if you're an average American citizen right now, going to United States airport, any airport in this country right now, your experience will be considerably worse and considerably less safe than it would be in a third world country, in a major, quote, poor country that is a tourist destination. We have degraded the very fabric of our society. So whether that's trying to use the roads, paved roads, why are we doing this? Of course, that doesn't begin to talk about our crumbling educational infrastructure, the fact that our children are going to schools with mold and dirt and water leaks and sewage problems, deteriorated lunch programs. The enshittification of this country is truly breathtaking. It's really, I think we're all so busy right now, but I think about like where I live. Where I live, there's this grocery store. It's probably 6-7 blocks away from our house. When we moved here, we've been here about 10 years now. When we moved here, that grocery store was like the nice grocery store. And that part of town was like, it was a nicer part of town. The stores were nicer. The little strip mall area was brand new. Everything was nice. It was clean. And today that store looks like it looks, I mean, it might as well be in a war zone. Everything's falling apart. It's gross. Everything's dirty. The parking lot is destroyed. The strip mall's destroyed. Half of it's vacant and empty. I see a restaurant come and go every 3 months. The windows are broken. And this happened in 10 years. I don't even like going to my local grocery store now because it doesn't feel safe. And I'm not afraid of it, but it's falling apart. And that's sad because that's a place where people work. That's a place where people go and get their groceries and their food. And that's obviously a system, a crumbling example of capitalism. There's no doubt about it. But there's a sickness in this country. There's a sickness in this country. And it's impacting everything. How many of you get phone calls every day? We were sitting this morning. How many of you get these fucking spam phone calls? Every day, spam phone call, every day, spam text message, every day, spam call, spam call, spam call. How many of you are getting these phone calls? What are they? Offers for loans, car refinances, car warranties. Every day. And yeah, and I'm guessing you probably have your number on the do not call list. Yeah. You got your number on the list. Your government is supposed to protect you from these predatory assholes making phone calls. I've had the same person call me 3 times today. 3 times. She's called me the last 2 days. I'm going to teach you actually how you can sue those people in a different show. But in a normal functioning government, you would be protected from those kinds of things. Northwest Pole President. I never answer. I mean, but that's the whole point. How many of you, like, your phone is more of an inconvenience now, the phone function of it, where it's more like the barrage of spam is so terrible that it's like, it's almost like anxiety. It causes anxiety. I have an anxiety around my phone because I'm just like, I don't see anyone ever calling me that. Why do I even have the phone feature of the phone anymore? I don't understand it. And you know why? Why do I have the phone feature of the phone? In case some fucking bill place calls me or some government thing calls me or some shit like that. The only reason I have that function, I guess, is to fulfill the sort of dying gasps of the capitalist system because something needs to call me every now and then to verify something for its forced capitalism. Moderator Cat had to get a phone. She got a new phone, finally. Okay. And it's like, we couldn't get the phone to work. And our big fear was going into the phone store. How many of you have gone into a phone store lately? You can't just go into a phone store to get your phone working anymore. You have to have an appointment. Why do you have to have an appointment at the phone store if your phone's not working? Why do you have to have an appointment? Well, because they have to sit you down and they have to look at your bill and they have to recommend some stupid fucking thing that you don't need. And it's all very forced. It's all very extractive. You can't just go to the phone store to buy a case for your phone. They have to go sit you down. Oh, you want a phone case? Do you mind if I recommend you getting a new watch or a new phone? Or maybe you can, and it's the most seedy shit too, by the way. They'll be like, well, if you get another phone, even though you don't need a phone, you can get this extra free phone and you can turn it down, and that's going to be less money than this. And you're like, are you really recommending that I get two phones so that I can get a new phone? And even though theoretically you're telling me this phone is not going to work, I don't need it, that it's less money. That is pure vulture capitalism. It's disgusting. And then we have all orders of magnitude of people being extorted. And in a normal functioning government, you would not have this happening. Look at Uber Eats and DoorDash. Okay? These companies extract these workers who make far less than minimum wage. They destroy their vehicles. They don't provide them with health insurance, health care. They manage them like they're actual employees, but they call them independent contractors. They pay these people like $2 to deliver. And so who has to pick up the tab? We do. If you order DoorDash, you have to pick up the tab, right? You have to sort of extractively tip your DoorDash driver and hope that he brings your food to you and doesn't do something to it, or that it doesn't arrive cold or some nasty shit like this. They've created a system of extortion. And of course, they take the money from the restaurants. They take 35% from the restaurant. You open up a new Thai place in Chicago, you're not even going to hear about it unless you're getting extorted by DoorDash or Yelp or something like that. It's all so predatory. It's all so disgusting. And in a normal functioning government, the government would say, what the fuck are you doing? The CEOs of these companies would be in jail for the abuses they're conducting on the working people. They would be in jail. A functioning system of law would look at them and say, you have extorted hundreds of thousands of people. You've extracted from them. You've taken their life, their energy. You've broken the law, and your little fucking weasel attorneys are not going to get you out of this. You're going to jail. In a normal functioning government. You know how I know that? Because this is how it works elsewhere. This is how it works in countries that are not strangle-held by capitalism. The European Union, Ireland, the Netherlands. All that is to say, on top of the fact that we don't have a government that protects us, we are illegally in a war in Iran right now without any sign that this is going to slow down or it's going to stop. And in case, lest you be mistaken, we are absolutely going to be putting men and women's boots on the grounds in Iran. There is no way that that's not going to happen. Why would we? How many of you know someone that's been deployed? How many of you have heard of a friend or relative? We've got here's the deployments I know about: 3,500 Marines. There's another deployment I saw, 4,000 people. Another deployment of 2,800 people. Our brothers and sisters are being used to provide military air cover for Israel to invade and take land from Lebanon. And we're not even talking about it. Israel has invaded Lebanon and has taken 1/10 of the country since the conflict in Iran has begun, because they have the full firepower, force, and I guess taxpayer dollars of the United States military. So they have literally used the air cover of the war in Iran to seize a country. Do you know who else did this? Russia did this to a country called Ukraine. And what did we do when Russia did that to Ukraine? Israel went into Lebanon. And bulldozed houses. They blew up 8 bridges. over a major river in Lebanon to seal off the territory that they have already taken. See, most of you people don't even know this. Some people I see in the comments are not aware of this. They went and bulldozed houses where people live. They are never going to give that territory back. And in a functioning government, the United States would say, "What the fuck are you doing? You cannot invade another country and take 1/10 of their land and bulldoze houses of families, farms, homes, razed to the ground." And in a functioning government, we would say, "Whoa, you are cut off. You're cut off. No more military aid. No more military aid. We are not going to be providing military aid for you to invade another country and seize their land." What did we do with Ukraine? $50 billion to come to their defense? What have we done for Lebanon? Nothing. Death, destruction, extortion, and capitulation. Let's get to the top stories. Good morning and welcome to the Ignition News. That was my extended rant. First story today, I saw someone actually cover this as well. In our first story today, I want to talk to you again about a functioning government. You may, of course, have seen this, and I saw this in the chats. Before I get in the story, I do want to ask you to please follow us on your favorite podcast platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts would be preferable. It helps us to grow the show. Today is our last live show. We do not go live on Saturday and Sunday, so we will be back live on Monday. So catch up for the Saturday, Sunday episodes on your favorite podcast platform. I will be disconnecting YouTube from the podcast because it's just a lot more chaotic than it's worth. But let's get into the top story. You probably have seen that Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, had his email hacked purportedly by Iran. Cyber criminals have apparently got into the email of the FBI director, and the FBI has said no comment. Of course, this breach was first reported by Reuters, and what they did is they posted private pictures of Kash Patel and his resume and his personal email address. In a functioning government, you would think that the personal email of the director of the FBI would be protected, would be a little bit harder to get into. In an online post, the Handala Group appeared to announce its successful attack into Kash Patel's email, and in a post it said, we decided to respond to this ridiculous show in a way that will be remembered forever. Kash Patel, the current head of the FBI, who once saw his name displayed with pride at the agency's headquarters, will now find his name among the list of successfully hacked victims. The so-called, quote, impenetrable systems of the FBI were brought to their knees within hours by our team. Now, to be very clear, it does not appear that any systems at the FBI have been compromised. But because we do not have a functioning government, we actually don't know. And how likely is it, by the way, that we would be aware of the fact that those systems were compromised? Little subtweet here for you. If you ever want to find out how capable some of these things are, there's a book that I'll recommend later, but I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but during the whole Russiagate thing, the prior to leading up to the election in 2016, the White House basically had to replace a massive amount of their own computer infrastructure because it had been infected. It's a really good read. We'll actually cover that later, but yeah, I just got a little bit of a subtweet there. Our next story, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has blocked the promotion of 4 Army officers to become one-star generals. And the reason many people are saying is because of race and gender. He has blocked 2 black and 2 female officers from becoming one-star generals. Now, the reason this is significant is that traditionally, these are merit-based, time-based promotions that happen based on time, contribution, performance evaluations, and they tend to happen in sort of systems of function in the military. I mean, the military operates this way. So for Hegseth to take this unprecedented step to step in, I think a lot of people are asking the question, did he do this so that one of his white dude friends can become a one-star general? Is he doing this on his continued attack on DEI? And instead of placing the best, most qualified people who have been doing this and serving our country for literal decades into roles which they deserve, then another TV show frat boy gets to have that slot? Of course, I'm being a little bit pessimistic there. Apparently, frustrations with this came to a boil last summer in a heated exchange between Ricky Buria, Hexet's chief of staff, and Dan Driscoll. Dan Driscoll apparently refused similar actions before. And what we're having is our military, while being engaged in one of the most consequential military efforts of the last decade, is having to deal with this shit. Zero accountability, weakening our military preparedness and our infrastructure. Good morning, everyone. It's good to have you here. I didn't want to cover this story, but I will cover this story. Obviously, you saw the president is now going to be signing currency. And I don't really have much to say about that. What I think you probably know how I feel about that. Obviously, this is another continued sign that the president thinks that he is a dictator. But I think the story here actually is not about the president signing, because I think anyone can put anything in front of him and he'll sign it. And his constant desire to be the center of attention, his constant desire to be the middle of everything, like I don't think that really surprises anyone. What I think surprises me, and I wouldn't even use the term surprised, what disappoints me is the fact that we have no one in this government that is willing to take any kind of stand whatsoever. So who traditionally signs currency? Does anybody know? Anyone? It is the U.S. Treasurer, Scott, the Treasury Secretary, I apologize, Scott Bessent. And so once again, in response to this move, Scott Bessent says this: there is no more powerful way to recognize the historical achievements of our great country and President Donald J. Trump than U.S. dollar bills bearing his name, and it is only appropriate that historic currency be issued at the semi-quincentennial. The translation for that is, yes, daddy, in case you missed it. There is no one stopping this man. No one is stopping this man. And do you know how I know that they have this man in an information bubble? Do you know how I know? Did any of you see this video from Iran, these Lego videos they've been putting out? These Lego videos from Iran, have you seen these? They are mopping the floor with the conversation. They're making these like AI slop Lego videos, and they're just absolutely trolling Donald Trump, and they're trolling Pete Hegseth, and they're trolling Benjamin Netanyahu. And the reason I know they have this man in an information bubble is because we have seen how he responds to things for the last 10, 15 years. They're absolutely trolling him. And everyone watches these videos and they're like, oh my God, that is an epic troll, right? Like they have his hand, they made a video in the hand. His hand is like rotting in the video. If he was seeing that, he would be fucking like ranting. We would not hear the end of it. There's no way that he is seeing that stuff. There's just no way. If he saw what they were putting out, how they were trolling him, so it asks yourself the question, one must ask, how is it that he isn't seeing it? Who is preventing the president from having the information? Who is giving the president the information used to make these military decisions? If the president saw those videos, we would be hearing about it on the news all day long. He would be freaking out. You know that. But there is good news. close out the story today with some positive news. The Senate has, I believe, gone on recess. We're heading into No Kings this weekend, and the amendment for the SAVE Act was defeated. The amendment on the elections bill needed 60 votes to advance the Senate. It was defeated last night in a 53-47 vote. Came over a marathon debate over an elections bill called the Save America Act. And it was, for now, defeated. And to be very clear with you, if you're not following the SAVE Act, it's basically going to require you to have advanced identification like a passport in order to cast your vote. How many of you have passports? Only about half of Americans have passports right now. How long does it take to get passports? I think I got my passport in 12 weeks. So if you need a passport in order to vote, and more than half of Americans do not have a passport, or about half of Americans do not have a passport. Imagine, this goes right back to where we started the conversation today. We have a government that can't even fix our own roads. We have a government that can't even run our airports. We have a government that is apparently sheltering information from the president. I would ask you one simple question. Do we have a government which, even if Americans could afford to get a passport, do we have a government which is capable of getting passports to almost half of America in time for the 2026 elections, I apologize. Do we have a government which is capable of getting passports to half of this country in time for the election? Do we have a country where people can afford, large swaths of the American public can afford it's $150? I know we don't like to say it. Could you easily afford a $150 expense right now? The majority of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency bill. How are you going to afford a luxury purchase like a passport? Do you have all of the information you need? Are you married? Does your birth certificate have your maiden name? Do you try to go to vote with your birth certificate and you are married and the person at the poll says you can't vote with this because your name doesn't match? Who's going to protect you? What lawyer do you have? You couldn't afford a passport. How could you possibly afford a lawyer, let alone an election lawyer on election day? How could you do any of these things? But this is the pride problem we have with America. We don't like to admit that we need help. We don't like to admit that it would be a financial struggle to buy a passport, or that we don't have enough money to defend ourselves against a tyrannical election worker trying to prevent us to vote. We don't like to admit these things. We've been taught to be prideful. We've been taught that we are, as they say, temporarily embarrassed millionaires. That doesn't affect me. I can get my ID. I can get my passport. But what if you can't? 12 weeks to get a passport? $150? Whether you like it, whether we like to admit it or not, most of us that expense, that unexpected expense, that would hurt, especially now. I see people posting photographs of filling up their gas tanks. $200, $250 to fill up your gas tank. But the good news is, for now, the SAVE Act has not passed. Now, to be very clear, I think it's reasonable to have some level of identification or protection required in order to vote. But these are conversations we need to have that are inclusive, not exclusive. Conversations that bring people to the polls, not conversations that turn them away. So yeah, I told you we'd close out with some good news. So there you go. There you have it. I also want to close out with acknowledging that this weekend is going to be the largest protest in the history of America. That's certainly an accomplishment. And I want to recognize that a lot of us, a lot of you, a lot of us, a lot of our community is going to be participating, and that some people are not able to participate. Maybe you have to work, or maybe you're not able to drive down there. Maybe you're disabled, something like that. And I would close out with something I discussed a little bit yesterday, but I want to just layer into it a little bit more. Whether you participate in No Kings or whether you build local community, whether you volunteer at a food bank, or whether you are uh, a leader at your library or a leader at your church, or maybe you're running for office, or maybe you are going around and submitting click fix tickets to fix potholes. We have to understand that every act of resistance is meaningful. I see a lot of people shitting on the No Kings protest right now. I understand the frustration. I get it. But I happen to believe that there is still good in this country. I happen to believe that there are people who still want to make a difference. All of the things I started with this show earlier today. And I would close it out by talking about Mamdani and what's happening in New York, what I would call, I think, the Mamdani effect, and how I would challenge you all to be part of that. One of the things that he's doing really, really well is constituent services. You have forgotten that your government's job is to take care of you. Most of us have forgotten that because our government's not taking care of us. But you see people tweeting at the mayor and saying, hey, can you please fix potholes? And then a week later, they fix something like 8,000 potholes. I saw like 60,000 potholes. They paid people to shovel the sidewalks. They're finding little budgetary savings all over. And people in the city of New York are starting to understand that they can ask and demand something of their government and that their government will use their tax dollars to benefit them. And people are really starting to like it. And I think what's going to happen is, I know it's dark. I know it's gloomy. I know it feels really, really, really gloomy sometimes. But I think what's going to happen is people are going to see that kind of thing happening. They're going to see people getting paid to shovel snow, to clear the sidewalks. They're going to see potholes getting filled. They're going to see their government doing good work for them. And they're going to start demanding that. They're going to say, it's actually not impossible. These things that you said are not possible. It's actually not impossible for us to get healthcare if we can afford to bomb a whole country, $200 billion for war. I think we can find money for education. I think people are going to start seeing this, but they can't just see it from Mamdani. They have to start seeing it from you. And it's okay if you don't want to go to the No Kings protest, but you have to choose to do something. You have to choose to better your community somehow. You have to prove that it is possible. Because just like people will see what is happening with Mamdani, they will see what is happening with you. They will become believers, maybe not in your mayor, but maybe they will become a believer in you. If you choose to model responsible citizenship, maybe they will believe and model that as well. I'm a lot of things, but I am at my core a believer in my neighbors, a believer in my community, and I am still a believer in my country. I grew up in a very short window of time where I did see some things about this country where I think it can, in fact, be an amazing place. I think if we fight for it, it can be something different. And my only ask of you is, if you have some kind of criticism for the No Kings protest and you don't want to participate, I would ask you the simple question: of what value is your vocal criticism to the people who may be attending the protest for the first time? Of what value is it to the person who spent 60 hours preparing for her community's No Kings protest? These people are volunteers. Of what value are your words um, to the mother who is making signs or who is carpooling people? Of what value is your criticism to them? To those hopeful, optimistic people going to the streets to try to protect you? Of what value is your critique? These people, whether they are doing it the way that you want, are going to the streets because they believe in this country and they are trying to make it better. They may not succeed. In fact, as I said yesterday, it's unlikely that we will get any major thing happening from No Kings on Saturday. There's not going to be a thing that happens from a policy perspective. But as I started the show with, that is not because of you. That is because we live in a government that is not governing us. But revolution is additive. Resistance is a formula. And you can choose to subtract from that formula, or you can choose to add to that formula. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't believe we could be successful. I would have left this country if I didn't think that we could win. I still don't know if we will be successful, but I'm willing to try, knowing even that we may fail. Greatness as a country, as a community, as a neighborhood requires us all to sacrifice, to get our hands dirty, and to care about the people around us. So if you have criticism for the people that worked very hard to organize No Kings, or the criticism of the organization, take that criticism, swallow it down, and find something productive to do with it instead. These are good people showing up on the street to do good things. If you go, be safe, have fun, take pictures, but most importantly, make connections. Resistance is a formula. Be additive, not subtractive. That's the show, everybody. It was a very long show today. You start out with a 15-minute rant. It's going to be like that. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful and safe weekend. We'll see you back live on Monday, but be sure to get the pre-recorded shows downloaded on Spotify Saturday and Sunday. This has been the Ignition News.